Here's another part-time cowpoke from Hollywood. But this picture was taken a long ways from Sun Valley. I took this at the El Mirador Hotel in Palm Springs. That, of course, is Robert Taylor. The reason for the long sideburns is that he was making Camille with Greta Garbo. Throughout the years, it's been interesting to watch the movie colony migrate from Malibu by the sea to Sun Valley in the snow and then to Palm Springs on the desert. And here's the fellow who was, for the great part, responsible for the migration, Charlie Farrell, founder of the Racquet Club. What started out in the 30s to be an intimate tennis club grew to be the most exclusive rendezvous for the Hollywood stars. In the late 40s, I spent my honeymoon here. As a matter of fact, that young lady walking around the pool is my new bride. This was Christmas time, 1948, and everyone was in a festive mood. Fanny Bryce, beautiful Margaret Sullivan, Joan Davis. She was in rare form that day, full of fun. Van Johnson picked the wrong time to try to sleep. Here's one of the prettiest girls ever to grace the screen, Donna Reed. Today, most people associate Donna with her TV husband and family. But in real life, this is the lucky guy, Tony Owen. I was so pleased everyone was so nice to Betty Lou. She really got a big kick out of meeting Frank Morgan. Edgar Bergen took her for a ride in his new plane, and Cary Grant invited her to play tennis. You know, a thing like this might make some husbands very jealous, but not me. Well, up to now, we've pretty well covered the Hollywood scene as it lived and worked and played during a very lush and carefree period. Roughly that quarter of a century of miraculous prosperity between the arrival of sound pictures and the threat of the television age. Of course, I didn't take all these shots, and I may have mixed up some of the times and places, but after all, it's very difficult to remember everything that happened over that long a period. But I'm giving you the same treatment I gave my folks. I was never one to spoil a good story by the lack of a few facts. Naturally, my camera couldn't capture all that was happening throughout the years, so during the 12 months that it took me to prepare this show, I went through thousands of feet of home movies from the personal collections of these stars here in Hollywood. And this is as good a time as any to express my appreciation to all these friends for permitting me to add some of their exclusive film to my own personal collection. Film which obviously was only intended to be shown within the confines of their own living rooms for the amusement of their family and friends. And today, with Hollywood using the whole world for location, there's plenty of opportunity for these camera buffs to get very unusual pictures. Here's a fellow who had a most interesting experience in Africa, Eddie Albert. You are now going down the Ogawi River in French Equatorial Africa. Those slow-moving crocodiles are very deceptive. They can move much faster than you think, especially on dry land. Miles from civilization in a little settlement called Gabon is a small jungle hospital run by one of the most dedicated men of our time, Dr. Albert Schweitzer. I sure envy Eddie. What a great picture to hand down to your grandchildren. He can also tell them about the practice he got as a jungle babysitter. In the last year or so, I've taken a couple of overseas trips myself, but to places where the natives were a little more sophisticated. There's a fellow who likes to babysit, but he likes his babes a little older. That's Bob Cummings. I didn't do so bad with the native girls myself. But when Cummings went out for that surfing stuff, I went back to shooting pictures. He's pretty good, too. This was taken from an outrigger. Just to show you how the jet age has shrunk the world to a sleeper jump, one morning I took this picture of Bob riding a surfboard off Diamond Head. And 14 hours later, I took this picture of him riding a rickshaw in Hong Kong. "14 hours from there in Cairo, I took a picture of another Bob, Taylor, riding a camel. This picture was taken in St. Mark's Square in Venice. That's Jean Crane. There's only one thing to do in this town. A ride in a gondola, soft music, and a pretty girl. Man, this is the life. But don't get excited. There's someone else in the boat. Her husband, Paul Brinkman. It was winter when we hit merry old England, and of all the unlikely people to meet at the Tower of London, especially where Anne Boleyn had throat trouble, was this fella, Pat Boone. If there's any doubt that people around the world still regard Hollywood stars as the glamour symbol, they should have been with me in Nice this past summer. Hundreds of people lined the streets and cars were locked bumper to bumper watching Glenn Ford and Hope Lang shoot a picture called The Grand Duke and Mr. Pym. This location shot was taken on the shores of the Mediterranean, halfway between Nice and Monte Carlo. They did a very interesting thing the day I was there. They were just about to shoot a scene where Glenn had to drive this sports car along the Moyer-Corniche Road at a speed of 110 miles an hour. Now, usually for the close-up of actors in an action scene like this, they take a process shot in the studio later on. But instead, they had that special camera that you see strapped on the hood of the car, and it was rigged up to start rolling when Glenn hit 90. Another very interesting location was in West Berlin. That's Bill Holden and his director, George Seaton, making the counterfeit trader in the actual locale of this true life story. And here's another guy who goes in for realism. That's John Wayne in Kenya, Africa, making Hatari. This shot is not in the picture. That's Duke just kidding around cowboy style. Yes, they're shooting movies all over the world, but they're still making great pictures in Hollywood. Just recently, I worked in one at the Disney studio called The Son of Flubber. It was a sequel to Disney's big comedy hit, The Absent-Minded Professor. Fred McMurray was the star. Fred seemed to get a kick out of my camera assistant. I had the whole family working that day. Those are my two daughters, Pammy and Janie. Incidentally, the minute they got inside the studio, the first thing they wanted to do was to meet Uncle Walt. We finally tracked him down on the studio street. Walt Disney. Master of fantasy, weaver of dreams, and winner of 29 Academy Awards. When I tried to latch on to this trip around the studio, he said, "This is for us kids only. You take the picture." But I hitched a ride in the rumble seat. For my two little girls, this must have seemed like a ride on the flying carpet. I nearly died. He drove right through a movie set that was working. Incidentally, this is their first attempt at photography. Can't you tell? One of the things the kids wanted to see was how all these fantastic props are made. This is one of the new mechanical elephants. This particular prop is to mystify the patrons of Disneyland. It sure fooled the kids. I'll bet it could even fool another elephant. You know, it's almost like a symbol of the terrific growth of Disney, from a mouse to an elephant. As my two kids followed their favorite Pied Piper down the Zorro Street, it occurred to me that here is surely the Hans Christian Andersen of our time. Hollywood can well be proud of this man, who, the mere mention of his name in any nation throughout the world, brings a happy gleam of anticipation to all those who are young at heart. Needless to say, Walt Disney earned the eternal gratitude of a very proud daddy when he took time out from a busy schedule to show two wide-eyed youngsters the inside of the land of make-believe. But I don't think the girls were as impressed with Daddy's heroics as they were when Fred McMurray invited them for a ride in the Flubber car. They kept saying to Fred, "Make it fly." They reckoned without the magic of Walt Disney. Guess who took this shot? Daddy, risking life and limb. That Glen Ford has nothing on us. Of course, my camera didn't start rolling until Fred hit 9 miles an hour. Well, it looks like nothing much has changed after all in 30 years. I wound up right back where I was at the beginning of the show, riding a Model T. But as you folks probably gathered, these sentimental journeys through my hometown are really a labor of love. And I also feel as Hollywood becomes historical, fighting to preserve the glamorous tradition that made it so great, it is a time for reminiscence and remembrance of things past. It's true, time puts a halo on a lot of things. Maybe Hollywood isn't or never was all I thought it to be. Maybe because I looked at my town through the other side of a home movie camera, I saw only the mink and not the plain old cloth coat. But one only sees magic when he's looking for magic. And so, whenever I want to recapture those days, I only have to turn out the lights in my living room, pull the drapes, and turn on my projector. There, glittering on the screen, I can see my town in its party dress, and see again those who shone so vividly across the horizon.
And now here comes a young lady who has created a real sensation in the picture business, having won all kinds of awards as the #1 newcomer of the year. And believe me, a swell gal with it. Take it from me, I know her for a long time. Miss Marilyn Monroe. Let's go. Come on out here, Marilyn. Marilyn, it's so nice of you to come here. You know, they say that beauty is a thing of, that a thing of beauty is a joy forever. I want to tell you, someday you're going to make a man a wonderful annuity. Now, come on over here a little closer. This is your television premiere, isn't it, Mariel?
That's right. It feels almost like making pictures.
Ah, yeah. Listen, I want to tell you something. Up to this time, television has been a medium, but now I say it's well done. Marilyn, I want to ask you one. Thing. I wonder if after, I know, Marilyn, when's the first time we met? Let's tell the folks.
Well, once you almost gave me a job.
That's right. Do you remember?